This is the second video which covers entering an application, and in this video I'm going to show you how to enter the other members of the household. So that's another adult who lives in the same household or who regularly visits, say, 2 to 3 nights a week. And I'll also cover finalizing the application. So starting at the summary page, click on the Add Household Members section, which is down here. Next you click on Add Household Member. And this screen is exactly the same as the applicant screen. So once again, you can enter the name and date of birth or the Working with Children application or clearance number. Once you finish typing in the details, click on Search and you get a search result. At this point, if you click on Back to Members, the system will delete the household member data you just entered and you'll need to start again. If you click Create Household Member, the system will create a record for that person and take you back to the record where you can add other fields such as title, whether they identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, and other names, etc. So we'll add these in. And then we click on Create Household Member. This takes you to a summary screen for household members where you can see the person you've just entered with an In Progress icon next to it. And when you're ready to add further information for that person, click on Edit here. On this page you can still make modifications to some of the basic details, but you can also add the Working with Children check status and the Community Services check status. These are the only two checks that you need to add for the household member. So let's put in a Working with Children number and an expiry date and change the status to cleared. Now let's enter a date for the Community Services check and we click on Save Household Member. If we clicked on Cancel at this point, all the changes that we've just made for that household member would be lost, but we'll save the household member and return to the summary. And you'll see now that Mr. Kevin Myers is complete. All the checks are in place. Next, I'm going to show you the provisional authorization section. Now, a provisional authorization relates to emergency placements only. So in a large number of cases, this will not be relevant to the application at all. If you do need to create an emergency authorization, the system will allow you to do so if you have at least one carer applicant and the household inspection has been satisfactorily completed. Note that because it's an emergency, not all the individual checks for the applicants have to be satisfactory beforehand. So when we look at this household here, you'll see that the household inspection has been completed satisfactorily and that there's at least one applicant. So we can go ahead and do a provisional authorization. So click on this section here. And the first step on this new screen is to enter the date the child or young person was placed. Note that this cannot be a date in the future. This date is important because it triggers the 3-month time frame for the applicant to complete their out-of-home care application. Next you click on I agree to say that you have read and agree with the declaration here. Then click on Generate. This will return you to the summary page. Note that you don't have an option to edit the provisional authorization section. The only detail you might want to change is the date the child was placed. If you do, then you'll need to contact the OCG to help you. Also note that if the provisional authorization is no longer required, so if the child moves to another placement, but the applicant still wishes to become a fully authorized carer, you should just continue with this application. Once they become fully authorized, the provisional authorization will simply lapse. Now I'm going to show you how to finalize the application, and before you can do this, some important conditions must be met. You will find these conditions in the PDF after this video, which is called Module 7 Record an Out-of-Home Application. This is the OCG's own documentation of the process covered in these videos, and the conditions are on page 37. So be sure to have a look at those and understand them before you try to finalize a live application. Now, before you can finalize an application, all of the sections on the summary have to have a tick complete next to them. So here's the inspection completed. Mrs. Jenny Wilson, all her checks have been completed satisfactorily, and the household member here, his checks have also been completed. So you're actually ready to go. We don't have to worry about the fact that there's a provisional authorization in place already, because that will lapse once we've actually finalized this application for them to become a fully authorized carer. So let's click on this section, and here we have the decision. Let's have a quick look at the options. We've got approved, which means that all the applicant and household member checks and suitability have been assessed with a satisfactory outcome, and the agency is happy that the application should be approved. You've got not approved. Obviously, one or more of the applicants or household member checks are not satisfactory, and the agency doesn't think it's appropriate to approve the application. And you've got data entry error. An application can be marked as an error if the data was entered by mistake, and in this case, it'll be erased. So let's choose approved and include a date. Also, you will need to answer these final 3 questions for any household members entered. First one, have you checked each household member's carer's register history? Yes. Have you checked each household member over 16 has completed these 3 checks with a satisfactory outcome? Yes. And finally, have you checked each household member over 18 has a satisfactory working with children check? Yes. Next, read the declaration. And if you're happy with it, click on I agree. And finally, click on submit. Once the application has been finalized and submitted, you'll not see the summary again. So if you want to access the authorization again, use the search function above. At this point, you should print off a copy of the application and download a PDF version for your records and send it to the applicant as a record of information held on the carer's register. To do this, simply click on the icon here, and you can see that it will download a PDF here. And finally, here is the PDF for this authorization with all the information on it. And of course, you can print it from here as well. So that brings us to the end of the process for recording and finalizing an application. So once you've finished this video, go back to the course module and make sure you download the PDF after this video so you have a documented version of the process with some important extra notes which explain some of the rules underpinning the application process.